So, greetings everyone. It's finally here. It's here. It's done. Just a few moments ago, Kwasi Kwarteng just finished his mini budget spectacular, the fiscal event of the year as it has been drummed up. And oh my word, oh my word, um, this is everything that we have been talking about for the past couple of weeks. It's got tax cuts. We're looking at massive deregulation in some sectors in particular. And even more, this is basically trickle down economics. It is on steroids, you know? And what's the consequences of this? Well, basically, to sum the budget up, if you want the TDLR of this, what has basically been happened today? And like I say, afterwards we'll go into just some of what the key points of what he has been announced and sort of what potentially the consequences are going to be of that in a moment. But just the TDLR, essentially what the chancellor has done, he's basically gone and said, we are going to cut all these taxes in these areas, and we're going to have all these special investment zones, which aren't very good. He's announced cutting, national insurance, the national insurance rise, stamp duty, bankers' bonuses was also on today. There was a lot of stuff, but it's all what we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks. So if you've been following for the past couple of weeks, you know all the other stuff as well that we've been talking about. But what's the consequences? What does it all really mean? So essentially, the government has said, we aren't going to take as much money in from taxes as we used to do. And instead, what we are going to do is we are going to borrow more. And what we are doing is during this time, we are hoping, or at least Kwarteng is certainly hoping, and so is the government and Truss as well, because this is Trussonomics. They are basically hoping that somehow growth will happen. That magically growth is going to happen. Well, remember, for the past 2 days, the Bank of England has officially said that the UK is in recession. Now, so far, the government has refused to acknowledge this announcement by the Bank of England, which says everything you need to know. But we are going into a situation where the Bank of England has said there is no more capacity to do all this type of, cutting at this moment, because the government needs to be taking more money in to spend more on more stuff, because we know that there is a recession coming. So there's going to be huge outer constraints anyway. So now you've announced even more cuts, which is going to make things even more tighter. And if you saw the parliamentary select committee yesterday on this, you had, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but he basically said, look, in 2020, this is not adult thinking to assume that something is just going to come along. And that is what has been announced today. We're going to get growth. How are you going to achieve this growth? IMF, all types of studies have been done into these types of this actions that Kwarteng has taken today, and have all come out and said, it doesn't work. We don't really. So why are we doing this? Well, because we've got an ideologically controlled government who are determined and have basically said, if we do this, growth happens. It's the traditional, 4-step plan, except step 3 is just huge question marks and step 4 is profit. So we're screwed. we are so screwed because of this government. And there's already talks, certainly in the Labour sectors, not the Labour sectors, but from the Labour Party, from what we heard yesterday, a lot of people are saying Theresa May could be out by March. This is not going to be a good winter for a lot of people, and the Tories have just made it infinitely worse. So, what was announced today? To go into more of these, but before we do that, please do remember to hit the like, share, and subscribe button as well. And of course, down below, links to my Patreon page, one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can all buy me coffee, and all the other good stuff. The YouTube subscriptions as well, the YouTube thank you button, and thank you very much for those people who do help and support the channel. So, quickly getting into sort of what was announced today. So, first of all, on growth and public finances, because this is what they're banking everything on being. So, Kwarteng has said that the government will expand supply side of the economy through tax cuts to target economic growth at least 2.5% a year. The chancellor said he would turn a vicious cycle of stagnation into a virtuous cycle of growth, although he cautioned that none of this was going to happen overnight. Kwarteng says that the government will publish the costings of the measures. He also has committed to the Office of Budget Responsibility the publishing of a full economic and fiscal forecasting before the end of the year. So I'm sure they're having a wonderful time in the Office of Budget Responsibility at the moment. I'm sure they're loving all these announcements. But the government's energy support scheme is expected to cost £60 billion for the next 6 months from October. So this is insane because this goes completely against the past 12 years of economic wisdom, and try and present this new form of like radicalism that he's sort of bringing into the government, but it's not. It's right-wing libertarianism ideology. And the idea is he's saying, it's all about growth, guys. Don't worry. As long as we get growth, everything is going to be fine. And that's how we'll survive. This is what's going to be called, as he called it, the new era approaching. And it's very telling that he made that comment that everything is not going to happen overnight. This is so that when he gets criticism of this in maybe like a couple of months' time, he can go, oh, don't worry, guys. The growth is coming. The growth is coming. Don't worry, guys. The growth is coming. But going back to that quote from the select committee yesterday, that is not adult thinking to think that growth will just magically turn up. So on to the next one, infrastructure. We actually did get some infrastructure planning. This is to try to streamline regulations and remove EU-derived laws. The Chancellor has a list a key of infrastructure projects to be prioritized for their acceleration. What these are, we don't really know. Whether we'll get more plans of what these are going to be. There's a lot of talk about these being the planning reforms, but as we've already seen before, the Tories lost massively in a local by-election over these planning reforms being thrown out. So make no mistake, as we've already said, there is a Tory backbench rebellion brewing over sort of the Green lobby being upset, and these planning reforms are also going to fuel this even more. The other one was he talked about strikes. So they're going to legislate for it to be harder for companies to go on strikes. Again, not a good look, but it is an attempt to try and stop all these strikes that have been gathering pace and set for essentially a new winter of discontent. Bankers' bonuses, that was the next one. Of course, he's done this to reaffirm the UK's status as a leading financial centre. Well, as we've talked about before, if you intend to rip apart all these financial sector rules, it doesn't make the UK that attractive to come to. And already we have seen financial firms move from this. So this does not look good politically, and doesn't work well either for the economy either, and it is going to go absolutely down like a red balloon. Well, down like a lead balloon, shall we say? Well, red balloon, down like a lead balloon in these red wall seats, because that is not going to come across well, especially to those red wall MPs who are already not happy about a lot of the stuff that Truss is doing. Next up, he announced the investment zones. These are, again, what we've said, we've talked about in the past before. These are going to become what leveling up is. Oh, we're going to do these investment zones, but we still do not know exactly how these zones are going to work, what taxes are going to be cut, what, you know, all the deregulation that could happen within these zones. They're essentially what we've talked about before, basically being a light version of charter cities. That's what I think these investment zones are really going to become. Business tax cuts. There was going to be a planned corporation tax rise from 19 to 25, but they've scrapped that completely. They're now going to remain at 19% because, again, from Kwarteng's announcement, that we will have the lowest rate of corporation tax in G20s. Why? Because this goes all back to it'll create jobs. There'll be companies be able to reinvest. They'll be to raise wages, pay dividends. Support our pensioners. It doesn't seem to happen that way. This has never seemed to have worked out that way. There's no evidence to see this once again being working. And he's talked about. He's also going to wind down. This is the interesting one: the Office of Tax Simplification, and this was basically an office designed to try and simplify our tax system. Because if you don't know, the UK has a very, very complicated tax system, because our tax system actually goes all the way back to like the 1800s, to when we originally said, right, our tax system is too complicated. We're going to rip them all up and just start again. And to be honest, that is what a lot of tax experts say that really needs to happen now, because the more rules and laws you add, the worse, more complicated you take the system being. So that's why there was a specific office to do this. He has now decided to close down that office to say that every department should now focus on tax simplification. So adding yet more work to Whitehall staff. So I'm sure that is going to please a lot of people in Whitehall today. He's also getting rid of the higher rate of income tax at 45%. This is also going to go down like a red balloon, not only in the red wall. It also very, very much reinforces that a lot of what has been announced today is only really going to help the better off in this budget. So it's only really going to help a very, very small percentage of people in this country, when a lot more people are in desperate need of help for cost of living crisis, the energy crisis, you name it. We've got a recession just about to sort of really kick off here in this country. And we're not talking about a worldwide recession. We're talking about a UK recession. So, that's essentially some of the key points that were announced today. But oh my word, this is exactly what we've been talking about for a long time. And yeah, none of this is going to go down well. None of it is going to play well politically. He's certainly upset a lot of his own people and his own party. The people, the Red Wall MPs, certainly not going to like how those bankers' bonuses are going to play. They're not going to see the overturning of planning regulations, and the fact that in these investment zones, these could mean less money for local councils. That could also be hugely damaging to a lot of public services in local areas. Just so much to talk about. But yeah, so little time. And of course, this isn't going to go well. None of this stuff is going to play well. But it is an absolute gift for Labour. An absolute gift for Labour, because Keir Starmer at the upcoming Labour conference, because now, believe it or not, the MPs get to go on holiday again. Because it's conference season for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll be seeing sort of big policy announcements, certainly from, I'd hope to see from Labour and Keir Starmer laying out what he sees as a future for Labour UK, which again, he really, really needs to do. We will probably see a lot of backlash at the Tory conference. Just how much Certainly not, but I can guarantee you at the fringes of this conference, there will be a lot of, shall we say, disgruntled voices in and among the Tory party, because a lot of what has happened today isn't really wanted by a vast majority of the party, let alone the MPs. Remember, Liz Truss was not the Tory MP's choice when it came to this leadership contest. It was Rishi Sunak, and now they've got to deal with it. And there's already talk. She's not gonna last. I think the winter is going to go so badly, so badly, because we talked about this. I don't know how many times we talked about this just yesterday. For everything, for Liz Truss's plan to succeed, absolutely nothing must go wrong. And even when we've got foreseen consequences, like the Bank of England says, yeah, we're in a recession, absolutely no acknowledgement from our government that we are in a recession or even entering into a recession. That should set off huge warning bells that there has been no planning, no talking about that today in this mini budget. And yet again, unforeseen consequences, because you don't know what may happen in a month or two's time. Yeah. It's not going to be good, guys. It's really not going to be good. I don't know what else to say except that. It blows my mind that we have this sheer amount of economic illiteracy. Now, bear in mind, I've said before, I am not an economist, but I listen to sort of economists. I read what they're talking about, what they're saying, and even they are like, yeah, we've got no idea what they're doing, why they're doing this. We're warning them about how much trouble this is going to create and all these regulations that they're going to get rid of. Remember, today, Kwarteng has announced the sunset clause, which we were really worried about, of all EU laws by the end of December 2023. So that is going to be a massive bonfire of regulations, because there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of EU regulations that it is just not going to be physically possible for us to get through and pass them in legislation. You literally do not have enough time to repass all this vital legislation, and some of it is incredibly vital. So, yeah, this is going to cause absolute chaos. We already talked a couple of days ago about the Pandora's box that would be opened if, Truss decided to start messing with regulations in the UK financial sector. But they're talking about everything. This, ladies and gentlemen, is incredibly worrying. But I'm sure we'll have more for you in the weeks and months covering this, unfortunately. But oh my word. Yeah, things are not good. Things are not good is the best way to describe this. Things are not good. Oh my word. I'm genuinely at a loss for words. I genuinely am. I'm very... I generally don't know what to say to some of these announcements. I generally don't know what to say. But we'll have to see. And I'm expecting, to be honest, the fracking to be a massive U-turn, because I think a lot of Tories are going to be very, very upset, because trust me, the fracking groups that were very, very dormant for a long time have all of a sudden kicked back into activity. And I'm so glad a lot of their first activities have been writing to their local MPs. So I guarantee you, certainly today and over the weekend, a lot of MPs are going to get a lot of emails in their inboxes or at their constituency offices complaining about these fracking regulations. And there's going to be, I think, a lot more to come, because I think a lot of the Conservative MPs, even the more moderates, who aren't on the sort of the right libertarian wing are just going to go, what's he just done? Because I guarantee you today there are going to be a lot of conservatives scrambling to try and talk to economists to find out themselves what Kwarteng and Truss have just done to the UK economy. So with that, as always, like I say, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a motivation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time. And